Welcome to this asphalt shingle installation video. Here you will learn about the steps to installing asphalt shingles on your lean-to storage shed. The first step to installing asphalt shingles is to install the drip edge on the eave edge of the roof. Cut the 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch metal drip edge using tin snips. Make a corner in each of the shed roof end pieces and extend the drip edge up the rake of the roof 2 inches. The drip edge is set directly on top of the roof sheeting and fascia trim. It goes under the building paper to allow any moisture running down on top of the paper to be on top of the drip edge. Nail the drip edge to the roof deck using one nail every 24 inches. The second step is to install building paper over the eave drip edge and roof deck. Building paper can be very slippery, so great care must be taken when standing on it. Roofing paper nails with plastic caps work best to hold the paper without ripping it. Make sure to only stand on places that are well nailed on, and also try to always stand on a plastic nail head. Line the building paper up with the drip edge and install one nail near the corner end. It can overhang the rake and be cut off squarely later. Roll the paper out along the drip edge. Align it with the drip edge and install a second nail to hold it in place. Go back and install nails every 12 inches along the edges and 24 inches in the center. The top edge does not need to be nailed because it will be nailed on with the next overlapping row. Install each successive row, making sure to overlap the previous row by 4 inches minimum. The third step is to install the drip edge along the rakes of the roof. The rake drip edge is installed on top of the building paper so that any moisture will be diverted above the paper. Cut the building paper off flush with the fascia board before installing the drip edge. Start at the lower end of the rake and overlap the 2-inch return from the eave drip edge that was installed earlier. Cut the drip edge to terminate at the ridge and nail the drip edge on in the same way as before, using a roofing nail at each end and every 24 inches along the top. The fourth step is to make horizontal alignment marks on the building paper to help you keep the rows of asphalt shingles straight. Start by measuring up from the drip edge along the roof rakes and placing a mark every 12 inches. Use a chalk line to mark the lines across the roof between the marks so you have horizontal lines that are parallel to the eaves. The fifth step is to install a row of starter strip shingles. The starter strips are used to help the first row of shingles that sit over the drip edge to stick to the roof without having nail heads showing. Starter strips can be purchased, or you can make them from the regular shingles you purchased to install the roof. Since most sheds only need a few starter pieces, it is typically more economical to cut the starter strips from shingles. To make starter strips from regular shingles, you will flip a shingle over and cut it lengthwise along the tar strip, just above the tops of the factory-made slits. Cut enough shingles to run along the eave of the shed. Cut 6 inches off the first starter strip so that the joints in the starter strip row are offset 6 inches from the row of shingles that will go directly on top of it. The first starter strip installed will be the one that you cut 6 inches off of. Install the starter strip with the tar strip on top of the drip edge. There should be a 3/8 inch overhang over both the eave and rake drip edges. Put a nail every 12 inches just above the tar strip and 1 inch from the ends. Continue installing starter strips along the eave drip edge. They should be 36 inches long and the ends are butted against each other. Cut the last starter strip off and leave a 3/8 inch overhang on the gable rake edge. The sixth step is to install the first 6 rows of shingles. Each row of shingles will be offset from the previous row by 6 inches. This prevents water from running down between the shingle joints and into the shed. Start at the same end of the eave that you started the starter strip on and install a full 36-inch long shingle over the starter strip. Maintain the same 3/8 inch overhang of the drip edge by lining the shingle up with the starter strip. Each shingle gets 4 nails, one on each end and one above each of the slits. Nails are typically installed 5/8 of an inch from the top of the slits and not in the tar strip. Continue installing the first row using full 36-inch shingles. Cut the end of the first row before moving to the second row, so you will have a reference point for the 3/8 inch overhang when you cut the next few rows of shingles that are installed. Start the second row with a 6-inch offset from the first row and using a full 36-inch long shingle. Continue installing rows of shingles, always starting with a 6-inch offset and letting the ends overhang the rake until you have 6 rows installed. As you install each new row, you will visually line it up with the horizontal marks you made on the building paper to keep the rows straight. After 6 rows have been installed, return to the starting ends of the shingles and install the filler pieces. Make sure that the pieces follow the same joint offset pattern as the shingles previously installed on the roof. These ends can also overhang the rake of the roof and be cut off later. This is a good place to use scrap ends from other parts of the roof, but on the first runs of roofing you will not have much scrap. The 7th step is to cut the shingle ends off after the first 6 rows are installed. You will use the straight edge of a spare shingle to line up your cut. Flip a shingle over and line the straight edge up with the 3/8 inch overhang of the lower shingle. On the top end, you will hold the straight edge 3/8 inch off the drip edge. Use your utility knife to cut along the straight edge of the shingle. It sometimes takes several passes with a knife to cut all the way through. Now, clean the edges of the shingles by using a scrap piece of asphalt roofing to burnish the cut edge of the shingles that are installed on the roof. The 8th step is to continue installing shingles in 6-row sets. The 7th row of shingles will start with a full shingle on the gable rake, just like the first row installed. Continue following the same 6-row pattern that you did until the shingles reach the roof ridge. When you get to the ridge, you will cut off the overlapping shingle flush with the ridge fascia. The 9th step is to install the metal ridge cap drip edge to seal the top edge of the roof from water penetration. The metal is different from the regular drip edges in that it should overlap the roof shingles on the top by 3 inches minimum, and preferably 4 inches. Check with your local roofing supplier to find a pre-made flashing that will work for your situation. Set the metal flush on one end, and then mark and cut the other end flush with the roof edge. If your roof needs 2 pieces of metal, you will overlap the metal joint by 6 inches and use roofing mastic between the overlap joint. The flashing should sit snug up against the roof and fascia. You may need to bend it so the angles match. It can be bent using a homemade brake or by hand on the roof. Bending by hand may cause kinks in the flashing. If you have any kinks in the flashing, you can pound them out using a hammer. Flip the metal upside down and install the roofing mastic on the edge that will rest on the shingles. Use 2 rows of mastic, one close to each edge. Make sure that the bead of mastic goes across the ends so the water is less likely to enter the ends. Flip the flashing over and set it in its install location. Flush up the ends and make sure it is snug up against the fascia. Nail the flashing to the roof using 2 rows of roofing nails, one along each edge of the flashing. If there are areas where the flashing is not snug against the roof shingles, you can add an extra nail to hold it down. After the nails are installed, go back and wipe off any mastic streaks. If you have any issues with water leaking around the nail heads, you can put a dab of mastic on the nail heads. Continue learning about shed building by clicking on one of these videos. Thanks for watching.